Today we're talking about INTP and ISTP. These two personality types tend to often be confused for each other, and there's quite a lot of people who have a difficulty deciding on whether they are an INTP or an ISTP. So we will be discussing about the things that these types do differently or see differently, the kind of things that kind of shape the way that INTPs and ISTPs look at the world. And we will be drawing some conclusions from that. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive in. So, both of these types lead with introverted thinking, TI. This is their hero function. So obviously, just from the beginning, we can tell that there's a huge amount of overlap, because the hero function is the function that kind of takes control over our personality, over our cognition. So of course, if two types have the same one, it's very likely that they will have a lot of things in common. Hence, the fact that they are so often confused for each other. There are a few aspects, however, that we should take into account when looking at the differences between INTPs and ISTPs. The most obvious one that you can use to tell if you yourself are an INTP or ISTP, or whether someone else is an INTP or ISTP, is the communication style. In general, INTPs have a preference for an informative communication style, whereas ISTPs have a preference for a direct communication style. What this means is that in the case of INTPs, they will be more likely to give more details and more context. And when you ask them a question, they will be more likely to provide the context and the background to the story to make sure that they get their point across. Whereas ISTPs are more likely to just be direct and straight to the point. And they're more likely to not say details if someone does not ask for them specifically. There are more differences and shades here. And of course, everyone sometimes speaks directly and sometimes is informative. But if you look at the general perspective, at the frequency of the direct versus informative communication, you will notice this particular difference. And I think we can kind of link this to the second difference, which is their parent function. So in the case of INTP, the parent function is extroverted intuition, whereas for ISTPs, it is extroverted sensing. I made a video previously where I was describing the differences between these two functions, so you can check it out. But I will go over some of the points again in this video. So extroverted intuition and extroverted sensing are both functions that are concerned with the outside, with exploring something new. So both of these types might be quite interested in new things. However, INTPs with their extroverted intuition will prefer opening themselves up to new ideas and possibilities in the abstract. Whereas ISTPs with their parent SE, or extroverted sensing, are more likely to open themselves up to the world of possibilities in the physical, concrete world. So INTPs will be the types, at least out of these two, that in conversations will be very interested in exploring multiple points of view, multiple perspectives, multiple ideas, in order to kind of fit everything together in their mental framework. They will use their hero TI to categorize the theories and the information in a logical fashion, but they will still get a lot of energy and resources from pursuing those endless possibilities in the abstract, right? Whereas for ISTPs, this will look a little bit different. They will be much more likely to say yes to new things that are happening around them, right? To, I don't know, whatever. It could be anything, going to a concert or traveling somewhere or trying out some new foods or whatever. I'm not saying that INTPs don't want to do those things, obviously, but the ISTP will be much more prone to be stimulated by new physical concrete experiences. And they might get their energy from there. And this kind of makes us move a little bit deeper into the cognitive stack, discussing about the child function, right? The third function. So for INTPs, this is introverted sensing, whereas for ISTPs, this is introverted intuition. This is the point that kind of makes a lot of ISTPs mistype as INTPs, because they will kind of take a lot of energy and resources from that introverted intuition and might think that they are intuitive themselves. But actually, they will still master the concrete world first, ISTPs, and they will like to find a point of stability when it comes to the abstract. So this is a personal view of mine that types who prefer introverted intuition over extroverted intuition, so SPs and NJs, are more likely to kind of prefer focusing on a very neat idea. And they will be more open to physical experiences. And in that sense, physical concrete experiences will kind of stimulate their ideas, their abstract perspective over things. And these people will kind of find that point of stability in the abstract, okay? So because they try to gather physical concrete experiences to shape their introverted intuition, they will have a different dynamic compared to the other 8 types, the ones who prefer extroverted intuition and introverted sensing in their first 4 functions. So the INTP in this pair, right? So the INTP is more likely to be interested in new ideas, exploring multiple abstract possibilities and thriving in the world of chaotic ideas, or the chaos of ideas. And they will be more reluctant to engage with new physical concrete experiences. So for that reason, their extroverted intuition will gain a lot of new ideas, new possibilities, new perspectives, and their introverted sensing will kind of bring a point of stability into their lives. So if for the ISTP that point of stability is introverted intuition, for INTPs that point of stability is introverted sensing. I kind of imagine this as SI and NI locking the door on whatever NE and SE are bringing into the picture. So INTPs are using SI to lock extroverted intuition. It's kind of like SI is saying, hey NE, thank you for telling me all of these things. Thank you for showing me how many endless possibilities there are, but now maybe it's time to focus on sedimenting our physical experiences from the past. Whereas for the ISTP, this will sound more like, hey SE, thank you so much for providing me with so many new physical experiences, so many new adventures. Now it's time to lock them down and focus on the one idea that we kind of drew as a conclusion of the things that we have experienced. Okay, and yeah, because we've been discussing this, differences in terms of their parent and child function, we can also look a little bit at the critic function and the trickster function, okay? So these are functions from the shadow or from the unconscious. The critic function is the 6th function in one stack. So for INTP, this is introverted intuition, whereas for ISTP, this is introverted sensing. And this kind of highlights the fact that INTPs tend to be more critical of other people with their NI. So they will criticize shallowness. They will criticize superficiality in terms of how people deal with ideas. And they will direct this to themselves as well. Whereas ISTPs will be more likely to criticize others and themselves using SI. So being critical of when people do not learn from their experiences, when people keep doing the same mistake again and again, rather than using their SI to look back and learn from the past. They will also criticize an inability of others to have their facts straight or to like have any kind of factual errors, okay? So this is one difference. And the other one is the trickster function, where we can look at extroverted intuition and extroverted sensing, but reversed, okay? So for the INTP, trickster is SE, so they are kind of blind to SE, whereas for ISTP, the blind spot is NE, they are blind to it. And one of the things that we can notice here is that INTPs will be like, well, I feel like I'm blind to the physical world, and they will have much more difficulty engaging with the physical world. They will have much more difficulty focusing and learning on new concrete experiences, and they will function much better in the abstract. Whereas ISTPs will function much better in a concrete fashion. I know an ISTP who was saying that I like to think straight. I like to have a clear, directed thought process. And this maybe is linked in a way to the absence of NE, because the ISTP has difficulty engaging with this function. The ISTP is struggling to kind of go into the same process that I was describing for INTP at the beginning of this video. That taking in of new ideas and perspectives. The ISTP might be like, well, this is kind of irrelevant. And this makes me think about something else that in general, SPs tend to think that opinions are irrelevant and facts are much more important, or concrete information, which an INTP is less likely to say or believe. Okay, and the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to the differences between INTPs and ISTPs is temperaments. According to David Kurz's theory, INTPs are rationals, whereas ISTPs are artisans, which shows some pretty clear differences. INTPs, being a rational, are more likely to be interested in systems, changing systems, understanding systems, innovating systems. They're more likely to prefer an abstract way of dealing with things. Whereas ISTPs are more likely to enjoy being in the middle of a lot of concrete experiences, engaging with physical tools, with physical tasks, and learning while doing a bit more, or at least they have a preference for that. Also, being artisans, they're more likely to enjoy living in the moment, adapting to the moment, improvising in the physical world. And that's why they might be less likely to consider a lot of different meanings, a lot of different possibilities, because they like thinking about what is rather than what could be, which in the case of INTP is quite the opposite. They're much more interested in what could be, what possible meanings are there, than to focus on what actually is right here, right now. So thank you guys. Thank you a lot for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and next week with another video on personality type.